Closed captioning provided by Beaufort County.
I won't talk very long, but I do want to make sure that I give you a few facts before the real historians get up here and tell you the real story, okay? This property, South Carolina Department of Natural Resources acquired the ruins that we're going to take a tour of shortly in 1999 through a donation from the National Park Service Federal Surplus Property Program. Then the county purchased in 2005 for $325,000 2 more acres. And then the county in 2013 purchased another acre for $75,000. Just one thing I'll tell you about the history, and then we're going to let Sean Taylor and Larry Rowland tell you the rest of it. The fort itself is believed to be the oldest tabby structure in South Carolina. I would like for everyone to enjoy this site today and then encourage others to use it too. I think it's going to be a destination for many people in Beaufort, Port Royal, and South Carolina. Anyone that's interested in history will come down here, I'm sure. I'd like to thank, first of all, Mayor Murray's here today. He remembers this. And I'd like to thank the county staff that had a lot to do with making this happen, even during COVID. This project was started and finished started August 31st and ended February 5th. So that's pretty good for a construction project. But Stephanie Nagged, who's here, she's our passive parks. Where's Stephanie? She just spoke. She's hiding. She's talking to Sean. Okay. And Andrea Atherton, who's not here, but she's an engineer with our engineering department, was the capital projects director. South Carolina Department of Natural Resources staff, we have Sean Taylor right here, and Andrew Wicker, is he here today? No, he couldn't make it. Okay, all right. Our contractors was O'Quinn Marine Construction, Andrews Engineering, and McSweeney Engineers. Are any of them here today? Hello. Okay, you're with O'Quinn. Beautiful job. McSweeney. He's coming? Okay. Beautiful job. Just beautiful job. The construction costs, the money came from rural and critical lands and from leftover bond funds from 2017. The total cost was $1,079,840. So, and the other unique thing about this project is that Port Royal and the county have signed an agreement that they will be doing the town of Port Royal would do the maintenance and will have the key to the gate, so to speak, and it will only be open during daylight hours.
Weather's turned out pretty good, so I like this kind of weather. This is my kind of weather. So it's my job. I was thinking about what I want to say, and my job as an archaeologist to tell stories. And sometimes I tell good ones, and sometimes I don't tell so good ones. But I hope I can tell a good one today. But my job as for the Department of Natural Resources as our Cultural Heritage Preserve, overseeing our cultural heritage properties, which the 3 acres across from us right here is one of those properties, is not only to tell stories about those properties, but it's partly, and my job today is to say thank you to people. So that's really what I'm going to try and get my long list of people thank today. I don't know if some of you are aware that we got this property, this 3 acres that is Fort Frederick, from the federal government through their federal lands to parks program back in the 90s. And it was open to the public, had been open to the public forever, but then 9/11 happened. And the gate got shut, and it was hard for even us to get in here to do the kind of things that we needed to do on the property to manage it, to manage the fort and keep the grass cut and whatnot. But with the transfer of that property from the federal government came a deed, and that deed said we had to do a whole bunch of stuff and had to comply with a whole lot of things: the National Historic Preservation Act, Clean Water Act, Equal Opportunity Act. Believe it or not, we had to ask the FAA permission to look at building a boat landing. Now, what does the FAA and boats have to do each other. Once you got into the weeds on it, it made sense, and we got that box checked. So there's a lot more alphabet soup that came along with that deed, but we at the DNR, when Beaufort County, Rod McPhee called me back in April of 2013 and said, we want to reopen this landing, we knew that we were going to have to do a lot of those things. So the DNR, after figuring out our plan, talking with executive office, our managing boards, said we're going to take on the National Historic Preservation Act compliance with 106, meaning we need to inventory the property for its archaeological resources so that we, in this construction process, we don't destroy something we don't know about. Eventually, Beaufort County took on the compliance with the Environmental Protection Act, and I'm glad they did because I tried to get in the weeds on that, and I'm glad I'm an archaeologist. So I'm really thankful for them for pulling on that role. But where I'm headed with this is to talk about, or at least put into everybody's mind, the amount of people and work that the agency, the DNR, did to get us to here today. At that time in 2013, I didn't have, it was myself and another, our property manager, we didn't have a dozen archaeologists to do the work needed. So we had to contract with the University of South Carolina's Institute of Archaeology out of Columbia, who had the staff to come down and do the excavation in 2015 that we did, and the public interpretation part. By 2015, I did have another archaeologist, Meg Gilliard, and she was able to put together the public component, who many of you I see here today came out and saw and worked with us back then, 5 years ago, and learned about some of the things we were finding. We had to, we knew that the tabby fort needed another coat of tabby. Y'all, many of you know Colin Brooker and Rick Whiteman. We needed to contract with them to have Rick and Colin work to put a coat of tabby on there to make that thing solid so that it would stand the wear and tear that it's going to receive through open and more visitation. We needed to tell more people about our story. We needed to work with Jamie Coker and Associates, who could put a film together for us. It's on our website. Put curriculum guide together, which again is on our website for the K through 12 group. School teachers can utilize information about this property in the classroom. Y'all can see the videos that we put together to tell our story. All of that contracting and whatnot required our procurement, our budget, our executive office, our DNR board, our Heritage Trust Advisory Board to bless the money, bless the plan, put our business managers to make sure we were in compliance with that other Vegetable Soup and Equal Opportunity Act, you know. All of those people had to put their hands on this stuff to get us here today. Our legal office had to put together the agreements and make sure they were all in keeping with standards. Department of Archives and History had to look at the archaeological work we did and bless it and say, yeah, y'all can move forward. Your plans are not going to cause an adverse effect. Department Administration and had to look at our legal agreements to say, yes, they comply with all of our laws, and they will help make sure we do a good job managing this property. Of course, DHEC, OCRM, and USA Army Corps of Engineers had to bless the environmental protection plans. I want to point out one person in particular, Brian Long, who I mentioned briefly, our property manager. When he started, he's been a property manager for 16 years. When he started, you couldn't see the fort for the privet that had taken it over, and he worked, which, you know, tree roots and tabby are not good friends to each other. He worked to get that privet off so we could see the fort, and he's worked to keep the grass cut and keep the trash up, and he's worked really hard with Bartlett Tree Service to keep the trees in top shape and make sure that they are healthy. And even though we hate to see big trees go, and we have had to take a couple down, one day those two big live oaks may have to go, but we're working what we can do to make sure those things are healthy and will last a long time. In wrapping up here, some of the Beaufort County, I've enjoyed working with Duncan. Duncan was awesome on this project. I did not get to see his carpenters, but I did get to see his heavy equipment operators, and they knew the sensitivity of the archaeological resources here, and they were easy to work with, and I'm thankful for those guys. Can tell from the quality of the construction here that his carpenters are just as good a job. Andrew, the engineer, Andrew's Engineering, they love their design. Plans look great. Appreciate their efforts and their understanding for recognizing all the things we could or we couldn't do because of our agreements between Beaufort County and the DNR. Sorry Andrea's not here today, but Andrea walked up and when she saw our excavation that we did here in the last year, her eyes got as big as golf balls, and I felt that she thought we were crazy. And after about a month, she knew that we were crazy, and because that's what archaeologists are. Any of y'all familiar with Bull Street? That's where our office is, and I often say, I finally made it to Bull Street, if y'all know what that means. But that's what archaeology is at times. Why are you scratching around in the dirt for all this stuff? Because it tells a story, and because we can learn from it. We knew from the Archaeological Survey in 2015 that we had the domestic refuse of an enslaved person who had lived and worked here on the old Smith plantation, and we knew from the construction plans that with the construction of that road just up there at that cedar tree, in our lifetimes we would never have access to that resource. So we wanted to excavate it and get as much out of it as we can before it was encapsulated for the future. And we did, and my archaeology team worked for a month, at least a month, and we've got over a year worth of artifacts to analyze. So any of y'all looking for archaeological volunteer opportunities, I've got an insane asylum in Columbia, South Carolina, where you're more than welcome to come and help us wash and catalog and quantify artifacts. But appreciate y'all inviting me today. I appreciate all these people. I appreciate this project because it's got us access to something that's really, really cool and unique, and just wanted to make sure I tried to hit all the acronyms and all the people I could, and I think I have. And thank y'all. If I left anybody out, I apologize, and I'm gonna be quiet.
Councilman Howard, Alice, Sean, thank you for kind of framing how we got to this point. But you can't talk about how we get to this point without recognizing Mayor Sam Murray. And Mayor, please come up and join me. This was your project. This has been your project. And whatever I say here, really, you know what happened in this location. And I can't thank you enough for never giving up on this project and making sure that this project happened. I almost, nervous about saying Sam Murray, please join me, because we got other Mayor Sam Murray from the city of Beaufort, but please join the conversation from where you are, sir. Mayor Murray the first, Mayor Murray the second. We have them both here. But this is an example of what collaboration really can do in this county if everybody works together and sees a common goal. And the goal was laid out by Port Royal Council, the town, and DNR many years ago. If you go back to the 1996 master plan for the town of Port Royal, the Victor Dover plan, this is highlighted on that plan. This is referred to as the northern port of the Emerald Necklace. And Sam, I'm sure you remember those conversations. This is that northern point as it wraps around. And we're so proud to finally see this come to fruition and get done. And it took all of us. Port Royal tore down the house. The county purchases the land. The DNR does all the research. Quinn does the construction, and this is what we end up with, something that the community as a whole can really enjoy. And Port Royal Council, we have Councilman Phillips and Councilman Owens are both here. I don't see any other ones. Fully supported this the other night, and we're going to take care of the landscaping and the maintenance as our portion to keep it going. And that's really what collaboration is all about. Sam, please add some comments to this because you made this happen.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to see it completed. There's some other parts that's supposed to go with this also. A boat landing is supposed to be here, which was here many, many years ago. I was told people from the island, don't know where they got into town, they had to come in on this boat landing that landed right here, and they got off the little boats and whatever and made it into town. Also, I'm looking for the reconstruction monument over here to the left, to the right, where we were working with the military about moving that fence back. How are we on that van? Are we making any progress there? They move with the military very, very slow.
It's somewhere in Jacksonville.
So we're in Jacksonville. They've been in Jacksonville for the last 2-3 years, I believe.
5 or 6 years, you're right, sir.
We do have a monument on the Naval Hospital ground behind the fence. We want the fence on the other side of the monument so we can go up and put our hand on it and feel it and so forth. But I certainly appreciate the county and everybody working together, DNR, to make this project what it is today. And we will continue to work with the town to continue to, till we get this boat ramp back here and that fence move if we have to bulldoze that fence down one day or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Murray. Appreciate you saying that. And I can tell you that this group and this council will keep your project moving forward. We are not going to let this go. We look forward to the kayak landing being added to this so that we can memorialize everything that's happened there as well. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Don't do the big step. Don't do it right there. Ready, everybody? 1, 2, 3. Don't we get it? There we go.
So the archaeological work that I mentioned required that we dig shovel tests across this whole property initially starting out every 100 feet, but we eventually narrowed it down about every 25 feet. And it told us two things. It told us there was surprisingly not so much stuff over in that area. It told us that the fort is surrounded with concentrations of artifacts, as we would expect. There's very little between here and the Big Cedar Tree, but at the Big Cedar Tree, there's a deposit of domestic remains from the end of the 18th, early 19th century, and we felt they were probably from the enslaved folks who lived on the Old Smith plantation. We knew the fort, we knew the history of the fort. It had been called no better than a garden wall, I think.
Yeah.
And because it offered the pretense of protection.
Well, there are a couple cannons in it.
Couple cannons in it, but you know, people could climb over it. But it was placed here, I think, after 20 years of argument between the citizens of Beaufort and the colonial government.
Let me interrupt you, and I'll get to that. And this is an artifact of the Yamasee War. The Yamasee War was a very decisive, very dangerous Native American war that went from 1715 to 1728, and right in the middle this fort was built. The context was that when the Yamasee rose up at Pocatello and started a war that decided the fate of the American Southeast, you have to remember, the Spaniards were in Florida, the French were in Louisiana, and the English were in Carolina, and in 1715 they had no idea who was going to win that contest. And the Yamasee War blew all that up, nearly destroyed South Carolina, killed 20% of the white population. And the second thing they did after massacring the traders in Pocatello, South Carolina, because all of American history actually began in Beaufort County, South Carolina, you know that.
Amen.
But the second thing the Yamasee warriors did is they came to Beaufort and burned the town, and they burned the fort that was there, that had been built there in 1706. So after the burning of the fort in the Yamasee War, there was no fortification protection for the town of Beaufort. And it was in that context that this structure started in 1726, and the rest is, I got more stories to tell you, but I'm going to turn it back over.
Sure. Well, that's what I got interested in, the construction part of this. How did this tabby built? And we went into, we call him Brooker and Rick Whiteman. Colin is a great resource, and he showed us how this fort was built. I was curious too about where did this material come from. At the time, I didn't realize, tabby had the marine shell has to be clean. It can't be full of salt. So that gives me some, as an archaeologist, some ideas about tabby and Beaufort. Beaufort is the highest concentration of tabby on the East Coast. Is that right? Maybe. So that means they were using middens from native peoples and from older historic middens, I would imagine, of tabby to do this construction. I think I'd calculated tens of thousands of bushels of oysters went into this, and it would have been acres and acres and acres of oyster beds in order to create that. So as an archaeologist, those are one of the things I'm thinking about. Can we find deposits out here that are associated with this construction? And we did actually, when we put in the signage just behind you, I think there's evidence of that construction. You know, the mixing of shell and lime and mortar and whatnot in order to build this thing. We also want to know about the interior of the fort. We knew from, I mentioned a minute ago, historic records that the fort very quickly fell into disrepair, and they talked about the powder magazine leaking, not a good thing. The bunkhouse being not the greatest of shape. So we did some work inside, and they talked about the height of the wall. So we wanted to know how much earth is accumulated in 300 years inside of here and outside of here. So we excavated a trench inside, and it showed us that the wall, at least this wall, is about 6 foot high. There's 1.5 foot or more of it buried. We found evidence of the brick powder magazine, and I think we found evidence of when they left here and went up to the new fort, and they recycled some of the materials. There was not a whole brick in that rubble pile. My guess is they tore down the brick powder magazine to recycle it and use it at the new place, because there's accounts of that in the historical record.
We all learn something every day.
That was all the excavation we did in here. I hope to come back in sometime in the future, because as the sea level rise and the higher tides, we're losing information on that front line. So we want to do some more work in the coming years, and we'll do that in a public setting as soon as this pandemic goes away. And we'll have everybody out to work with us and whatnot. Of course, the fort never saw action. Its biggest claim to fame is Emancipation Proclamation, and there's a image on one of these panels of a dock constructed across the walls, and many accounts in the historic record of people. We walked across the dock at the old Spanish fort or whatever, because by then many people have forgotten what it was, to the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation on the Naval Hospital, which is now on the Naval Hospital property. So that, is really, this place's biggest, I think, claim to fame, greatest significance is it is a place. We don't know where the Emancipation Oak is, but we can touch it. It's over there. But I can't go touch it. We can touch this, and so therefore we can touch those people, metaphorically, that were here that day in January 2 or 1?
January the 1st, 1863.
So that's an exciting thing about this place to me. The other exciting thing is the enslaved person's house we found up there. The artifacts tell us that it's not a everyday, unskilled field laborer. Lots and lots and lots of sewing related items came out of that excavation, which makes me think it's a person that was a skilled seamstress or tailor or whatnot. The building is, its construction is very, very odd. It's a 28 feet long, 14 feet wide duplex, chimney in the middle. So imagine living in a 14-foot square. And this construction suggests the pits that were dug to form for the walls suggest a substantial structure, and I mean substantial on this, really, in my mind, on the size of the pavilion up there. Duncan said he drove those pilings in the ground pretty deep. Well, these folks had excavated a trench for a wall trench, which is a strange type of construction to me, that was 18 inches wide and 2 or 3 feet deep. The walls were plaster, oyster shell, lime, mortar plaster, and just like a lath and plaster type of construction that we're familiar with, except probably a little more crude for these guys. And Colin Brooker has explained this a little bit to us as an architectural background, in that the roof was probably thatched, given the substantialness of the construction. It may have been 1.5 stories, maybe 2 stories, but that we've got more than a year worth of artifact analysis to go through. And there'll be more stories to tell, and just one popped in my head. We got a bunch of coins, and Dr. Rowland, you can probably add something to this. My colleague, in conserving these coins, we had a 1783 Lady Liberty, I can't remember if it's a $50 or a dollar or whatever, and then we had a 1780, I can't remember the last number, but something, King George Rex coin from Ireland. And then, you know, I don't know anything about, I did take a numismatics class once, but I don't know anything about these things. And my colleague, after he's cleaned them up, brings them to me, and he says, look at these, look at how cool they are. And he hands them to me. He says, what do you think? And I don't know, Tark, you tell me, what are you trying to show me? He says, well, this one's heavier than this one. I said, you're right. This one, the American coin is very substantial, about the kind of size of a 50-cent piece. The English, I think it's the English coin, it's missing some weight. He goes, I got into the weeds on it. It was a big deal. Counterfeit coinage was a big deal after the American Revolution, or during the American Revolution. The English coin is counterfeit because it doesn't meet the weight it should be. That was a really, you know, when you can tell stories like that, when you can find things like that to come out the ground, you know, what happens to us today if we counterfeit something, somebody slaps a $100 bill on the copier, the feds are going to come see you. But, you know.
Let me put this artifact that I'm standing next to into context. It was built during the Embassy War. The Embassy War inflamed all the Native Americans in the American Southeast. The Spaniards, the French, and the English were involved. It went on for 13 years, and it drove the Native Americans out of the low country of South Carolina. The embassy left. The war started in Pocatello, and it ended in St. Augustine, Florida. So, and it basically preserved the Southeast as an English dominion. And so it was very important to the history of colonial America in the Southeast. And this fort was part of that. Fort King George in Darien, Georgia, and this fort were built within 4 years of each other for the protection of the inland passage from St. Augustine to here, because the embassy Indians and Spanish soldiers were using that passage to attack colonial South Carolina. So that's what this fort did. It didn't last too long. It was a wooden fort until 1733, and then this was built with the money from the Commons House of Assembly, which was the colonial legislature, and the contractor was John Delabere. And the contract said that you can build a substantial fort but not spend any more than 2,000 pounds sterling. Well, that was a fair amount of money, but it didn't matter to John Delabere because his wife was Jane Paris Delabere, Paris Island. So he was and she was the heir to Paris Island, and it was in their personal interest to have a fortification that could protect against Spanish attack. A couple of interesting things did happen here. In 1738, a large group of slaves escaped from Port Royal Island. 60 or 70 slaves. They escaped by organizing themselves. You have to understand, these were very recent African immigrants is what they were. They organized themselves, they stole guns, and they stole boats. And they went straight past this fort. And they were so well armed that the guys in this fort decided not to shoot at them. And they took the boats and they went all the way to St. Augustine, Florida. And they became the nucleus of a town in Florida called Fort Moussa, which was one of the first free black towns in America. And throughout the 1730s and 40s, the Spanish government in Florida was offering refuge to South Carolina slaves that could escape to there. This fort was a small part of that. And of course, the last more important event was the one that we've already described. On January 1st, 1863, during the Civil War occupation of the Union Army, there were many Union troops up the hill, including the 1st South Carolina Volunteers and many other units, encampments up there. And so when they had the Emancipation Proclamation, that was the audience. and this was the place, someplace up here. So the Union Army built a dock across this stout wall, and they used it as a steamboat landing. And so a lot of the people that came and went, a lot of the dignitaries that came and went to that ceremony on January 1st, 1863, passed across this artifact, and it was part of that. And I thank you for standing in the cold and listening to another history lecture about how all of American history actually began in Beaufort, South Carolina. So
It did.
anyway, thanks, y'all.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for coming, and I'm glad you're here.
The County Channel is also available on video on demand. Go to BeaufortCountySC.gov, scroll down to Public Meetings, click Watch Now, and then click the Video on Demand button and select your program from the list.
Call the meeting to order.
If you'd like a DVD of this program, click on the link on the right and fill out the order form. And thank you for watching the County Channel.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Walls, your Beaufort County Treasurer. If you've ever wondered, what's e-billing or My Beaufort County? I'd like to give you a sneak peek, because My Beaufort County is your one-stop location online to manage and pay your Beaufort County property tax bills. Simply type in mybeaufortcounty.com or download the app in the App Store, and you'll continue to log in. So here you have an opportunity to continue as a guest if you don't want to create an account, or if you would like to create an account, you have the opportunity to sign up for e-billing, store your payment information, and manage all of your tax bills from a simple dashboard screen. To manage your property accounts in your dashboard, simply click Link Account and talk to TaxBot, who is happy to assist you in signing you up. You can search for a property by your PIN, which is your parcel identification number, your AIN, your alternate identification number, or simply using an owner's last name and mailing zip code. Once you've searched, go ahead and select the properties that you would like to associate with your profile. You can either choose to keep going or let TaxBot know that you're finished by paying your taxes, finding another property, or simply going back to the dashboard. If you would like to also sign up for e-billing, you can do that by clicking Manage e-billing and sign up each property to receive your bill electronically. Want to know where your payment information is stored or your receipts? Go ahead and click your wallet. In the wallet, each receipt you've paid online is available for observation, download, and printing right here. Need to update your profile? No problem. Simply click the icon in the top right-hand corner and you can update your personal information and manage your payment methods. An added bonus, when you use an e-check to pay on My Beaufort County, there's no additional costs. You have your bill and your electronic receipt all in one location and at your fingertips whenever you need it. If you have questions about using My Beaufort County or taxes in general, please call my friendly staff and I at 843-255-2600, or you can visit us at BeaufortCountyTreasure.com.
Route 51 traffic. My name is Lance Corporal Dean Entrup, work for the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office Southern Enforcement Division, and I've been with the Sheriff's Office now for a little over 4.5 years. Dispatch, Property 1 traffic. I was born and raised on Hilton Head, went to Hilton Head High School. After that, I went to University of South Carolina in Beaufort, graduated with a psych degree. I've always wanted to be in law enforcement. From the age of 14 to 21, I was in the Explorers program here with the Sheriff's Office. There's a lot of pros to being born and raised here in Beaufort County and working for the Sheriff's Office. Geographically, when responding to calls for service, I know the area like the back of my hand. Times I've been able to better communicate with people in certain situations due to maybe me going to high school with them or etc. At the end of the day, Beaufort County is a small county and everybody knows everybody. I've been on the Bloodhound team for about 2 years now. We're on call 24/7. We'll respond to calls for missing and endangered persons, elderly people that have walked off. We will also respond to armed robbery calls, and we also will assist other agencies if needed. Being on the Bloodhound team, I get to do what I love, working in law enforcement, and then also being able to work in law enforcement with handling dogs and what they have to provide. Oh, good girl! At times, law enforcement can have a lot of exciting moments, but what's nice about our job is that we get to help people sometimes that are having their worst days. You're not always sitting around, there's always something different. Anything can happen at a split second. Every day is different. Dispatch, Property 1 on scene.
Good morning, everybody. Thank y'all for coming. We really appreciate it. The opportunity to come out here and celebrate Dr. Deja Jackson. She was with us in the engineering department, and we just thought that this would be a really great time for just to show a little bit of appreciation of who she was and what she meant to us at the county. So I thought about, rather than wait until the very end to show the sign, that let's go ahead and show the sign now, and then we can talk about it and appreciate it while we're all out here. So, a few things. So we didn't get to know Deja as long as we had hoped. She started with us back in May, and actually she started 2 weeks before I did, but I beat her to the office because she had to quarantine for 2 weeks before she started. But Deja and I, she was full of spunk, ready to go, very energetic, just young, energetic, everything you want in a young person and a young professional. And she and I shared an office. And before we got there, it was one large office, but they had subdivided it and put a wall there, and it was paper thin. So she heard everything that I talked about, good or bad, but a lot of times I was talking to folks on the phone about the program and stuff we were working on and telling about Deja and myself, and I would say it wrong every time. Our department was the Department of Traffic and Transportation Engineering, and I was the director and Deja was the deputy director. And I don't know for the life of me why I couldn't say those words all together. But every time I got off the phone and I had said assistant or project manager, Deja was right there to say deputy director. So she kept me in line on all the time. But one thing, probably the biggest struggle that I had as Deja's supervisor is keeping her busy. She was just, every time I gave her a task, she'd just knock it out. She did such a great job, in-depth, thorough. And I didn't understand that. I was that same way when I got started in my first job and didn't understand my supervisor not being able to give me enough work. And now here I am, the supervisor, and having somebody as talented as Deja and not being able to keep her busy. So it was a tough task and a good problem to have. But later we got involved. Our big part in the engineering division was the the 2018 sales tax program. So that's really what we were working on. And Deja, we had done a lot of work, but we hadn't got anything out to bid. So Deja and I were charged to really vamping up where we were in the program. And one of the things we decided to do first was hire a marketing consultant to help us tell the public where we are in the program. So I gave that as Deja's kind of top priority. So she was working with the consultant. Part of their responsibility was to develop signage. So they came up with 3 or 4 different signs, and Deja was like, this is not good. She didn't like any of them, and I agree, they probably weren't the best. So Deja said, I think I can do something. And so she started tooling around, and within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, she came up with pretty much what we see here today. We modified it a little bit here and there, but I think what she came up with was perfect. It created the brand for our program. This is something we're going to have up at every project that we do, and it clearly delineates what we're doing. We're doing pathways, we're doing a bridge, and we're doing roadway projects. And I think that's completely exemplified. So it's my hope that as we build our program and we develop our projects, that every time you see this project sign, that's just one reason we can think back of Deja and celebrate the life that she lived. We can all have a better appreciation of that. We don't know how many days we do have, but if we use Deja as our example to be confident in what we do and just tackle the world, I think the whole world's going to be a better place.
It means everything. It means I'm seeing something that Deja wanted to do come to fruition. She was very honored to be with the county and as the engineer and being a local because she was born here. And one of her things that she really wanted to do was improve the community. And I recall when the bridge incident happened, she was still in either high school or in middle school. And she mentioned in one of her papers that she done that because of that bridge, that inspired her to get into the transportation field of engineering and stuff like that. And like I said, this is just a dream come true. She's homegrown, she's local. This means a lot to me, and it means a lot to my family. And I know Deja's somewhere just smiling right now, just smiling down on us.
Gathering today for the South Carolina Breakfast Club, and it's a group of pilots who have been meeting every other Sunday since 1938 for breakfast. And so we got lucky enough to get on the list to host an event, and so this is our very first hosting of the South Carolina Breakfast Club. And so I think it's just a group of pilots and aviation enthusiasts who just want to get together and have some fellowship and have a good time. Once you're on the list, you can kind of re-up and do it again. So we're hoping this is the start of a long tradition. Just do it every year. We have an active, really active community, and you know, we're doing some things at the airport here to try to help that and to keep things active. And so I think that's helping. We've got a lot of folks who are taking flight lessons this year. Of all things during the pandemic, folks are learning how to fly, which is pretty cool. And we've got an active Civil Air Patrol group out here at the airport as well. So we're trying to get youth involved, and that's really the key. But there's a really active pilot group out here. A lot of folks would be surprised at this little airport, but we've got a lot of folks. Better things inside the terminal. We'll do some upgrades in there. Cheaper gas prices, which is what pilots like. You know, they're just like people who drive on the interstate. You look for the best prices. So we're doing that, but really trying to send people into Beaufort too and let them experience the area so they're not just popping in and out of the airport.
Hi, I'm Alice Howard and I represent District 4 in Beaufort County. It's located in northern Beaufort County, and the boundaries include a good portion of the city of Beaufort, starting up in the 100 Pines area, down to Mossy Oaks in the city of Beaufort, and then over to Port Royal. Almost all of the town of Port Royal is included in the district, including the part within the old town of Port Royal and across Ribault Road up to picket fences. The unincorporated part of District 4 includes some places like right here at the Spanish Moss Trail across the street, and then also all of Shell Point on the side of the Savannah Highway toward the river. And the district is primarily a lot of houses that were built in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it's a working class, I call it a working class neighborhood, and we're seeing second generation and third generations of people moving in the area. This is the Spanish Moss Trail that runs through the district. We're hoping that it will eventually cross Ribault Road in the near future, all the way down to the port in Port Royal, which will be great. And we have seen just hundreds and hundreds of people use this trail, and it's such an asset to the county, the city of Beaufort, and the town of Port Royal. And we hope people from other parts of the county can appreciate it. And we have people from all over who ride their bikes or ride their scooters or walk their dogs that use it daily. Well, District 4 has a lot of educational resources in it, starting with TCL is in District 4, and then we have the middle school, Beaufort Middle School, and Mossy Oaks Elementary School, 2 charter schools, Low Country Montessori School in the Shell Point area, and then the Riverview Charter School, and then Port Royal has its own elementary school. And that, I think, creates a great sense of community when you see children walking to their school or getting to go to the charter school that they might not otherwise get to do by choice. And it's an asset. And then TCL, of course, is our local educational system where if someone needs to stay at home or they can't afford to go away to college, they can get a 2-year degree at TCL, and it's a great opportunity. This is the Beaufort cluster as far as Mossy Oaks and Beaufort Middle. District 4 has a lot of assets to it, such as here that's in the town of Port Royal, the cypress wetlands. It provides an easy way to access the outdoor environment for families who live in the district. And the town of Port Royal's done a wonderful job with it. And especially during the pandemic, this area was one of the few places that children and families could come and be outside. And we have some other areas in the district like this, but I think it speaks to that District 4 is a work and live district. You can work and live and play in your district. And a lot of people do that through bike riding, walking, and also working, because the hospital's in our district too, and Paris Island and the Naval Hospital. In the background is Battery Creek, which bisects District 4 and part of our beautiful community in District 4. We also this is a boat landing, the Paris Island boat landing near Paris Island, and we have the Sands, which the county maintains, which is in the town of Port Royal landing. And access to water is very important to people in District 4 because we like to get out on the water and people like to fish, and the environment's very important. We're in a more suburban, urban area, but we have ready access to the beautiful environment of District 4. We have a lot of groups in District 4 that do things like pick up litter, and volunteer groups such as the Village People in Port Royal and other Keep Beaufort Beautiful highway groups that help maintain District 4 as a place everyone would like to live, work, and play. All right, we're here at Shell Point Park, which is in the unincorporated part of District 4 in the Shell Point area. And this park will have a connection to with a pathway due to the 1-cent sales tax that was voted in, all the way up to behind the Bilo on the highway, which will be a great asset and more connectivity for the neighborhood here in Shell Point and people who like to come to this park. The ongoing priorities in our District 4 continue to be stormwater. That because a lot of the housing and infrastructure was built years ago. We're continuing to address that in conjunction with the 2 municipalities and the county in the Shell Point area. And also another ongoing priority is sidewalks. Our urban-suburban district needs more connectivity as much as possible so people can live and work where they play. And last but certainly not least is affordable housing. The county, in conjunction with the municipalities, has formed a steering committee to look at setting up a housing trust fund so that people can actually work and live in the same area. My name is Alice Howard. I'm your County Council representative for District 4. I hope you will contact me with any concerns, complaints, or questions at my cell number 843-986-7403 or by email. It's ahoward@bcgov.net. Thank you.
There's just over 2 million oysters in here. So I actually started mariculture in '07. You know, they love the Beaufort single oyster, but Mother Nature only gives you a few of them. So we knew we had to actually start growing them to meet demand. And that's what we've been doing ever since. We're actually from Maryland, Virginia area, Chesapeake Bay. And just as a kid, mess around with oysters all the time. It's just something that you do. '07 was probably 40, 50,000 oysters. This year, we should be up around 250,000. Get a little show and tell here. We're pulling these bigger ones out, and they'll go into a bigger mesh bag. In about 6 months, usually 3 inches and in a raw bar in Charleston or Beaufort. All right, let me hand you these back, Brian. Don't want to drop that. The final product's a 3-inch oyster, which we're about to go get here in a little bit. We get accolades all day long. If the people in Beaufort love them, because Beaufort people know oysters, and they say they're good, they're good. Frank Bruni from the New York Times had oysters at the Ordinary, which is a fine restaurant, James Beard award-winning chef. They had 8 oysters on the menu. He ate 1 of each, and then he called Chef Lotta over and pointed to our oyster and said, "This is the best oyster I've ever eaten." And he went and ate 3 dozen more, and then went on Twitter, 300,000 followers, and said, "Come eat these oysters. They're really, really good." A lot of the phone calls came from out of state, and we're just not set up to ship out of state yet. We're working on it. We got to satisfy the needs of South Carolina first. We'll drop the tanks, and the water will pass through this sieve, but the larvae is going to be around 70 a micron, so they'll be captured on this sieve. It looks like coffee grounds in here. Then we'll take this that's captured here, put them in these cups with filtered seawater. Then we'll take a sample of that and put it under the microscope. The size and how many we have determines how much food they get back in the tank when we reload the tanks with filtered water. 7 days a week for at least 21 to 25-day cycle. It's like having a lot of little puppies. I learned pretty quickly that I had to learn how to do this because we ran out of oysters in the wild. It takes too long for our market demand to get a single wild oyster. So I went to hatcheries around the East Coast, learning from them how they do it. And each hatchery has its own little ways of doing it. What works in a hatchery, say in North Carolina, may not work in a hatchery here. The water body's different. What we do here may not work someplace else. So you have to find your own little niche. The purpose of the single grain is a single oyster. If the crushed shell is too big, we'll get multiple sets on it. Then we'll get a clustered oyster. Well, we get those in the wild already, so we're not trying to grow a clustered oyster. Once they set, they can only do it one time. So they cement themselves to that piece of crushed shell, then they start growing their own shell. We do a lot of research with DNR, DHIC, FDA. We're in constant communication with other hatcheries. Weather changes things. We just had a cold snap the other day. It slowed down our growth. Our oysters our oyster larvae went an extra 5 days because of the drop in temperature. This is a refractometer, and I'm measuring the salinity in the water. Look up into the sun. Aquaculture is, from our definition, is impoundments on land. Shrimp farms, catfish farms, that's aquaculture. This is mariculture, which is impoundments at sea, which is what we're doing. That's the difference. There's about 1,800 oysters in here. These are ready for market. We got the water coming in from St. Helena Sound. That's good ocean water. And so that's where you get that nice briny, bright flavor. That you taste it at the ocean, taste of the sea. That's what we want. Nice cup, good fan. These are going to be processed tonight, tomorrow morning, and by mid-morning they'll be on their way to Charleston. You hear the boat came up? A little bit of mud now. In the raw bars, they typically call this the single lady. That's what you want to see, that nice china white kind of body, and you want to see that liquor in there. And you just want to simply cut the bottom of that muscle. And this oyster is ready to be eaten. I love them. I love them raw, cooked, steamed, any which way I can get them. Sometimes I put a little bit of lemon on them or a mignonette, a little bit of hot sauce. I jump around, but I'll take them any which way I can get them. Beaufort County is really unique in its water. Well, they call our rivers rivers, but they're not really rivers. They're actually tidal estuaries that have flow in and flow out from the ocean. They're not from way up in Columbia, passing by all kinds of rivers and towns and water treatment plants. Beaufort County gets it. They understand the uniqueness of our water quality, and they put a lot of effort into ensuring that our water stays clean. Clean water is extremely valuable, and dirty water is extremely expensive. Our connection with the water body, with the marsh, defines who we are, and they're really good at protecting it.
What can you do to keep your family and friends safe? Don't provide easy access, especially to narcotic medications. Inventory your medicine cabinets, especially controlled substances. Safely discard outdated or unused medications properly. Did you know Beaufort County has many locations for you to dispose of your outdated or unused medications?